On the show today, we'll discuss how Nigeria can nurture the entrepreneurship mindset in its youth to unlock more economic value from its human capital. As always, you can be part of the conversation with the hashtag #BeyondMarket. You can follow my Twitter handle too, that's Esther Ubudaga. Now, the Brookings Institution says its trajectory suggests that Nigeria had about 87 million people in extreme poverty compared with India's 73 million. Now, while extreme poverty in Nigeria is growing by 6 people every minute. Now, we'll explore how the entrepreneurship mindset can help salvage this worrying trend and improve the quality of human capital available in the country to unlock economic value. Now, joining me for this discussion is Austin Okere. He's a founder of CWG PLC and also an entrepreneur in residence at the Columbia Business School. Austin, thank you so much. Pleasure to have you on the show today. It's quite interesting, but just quickly, just to hear your thoughts on this, on the report from the Brookings Institution, Nigeria surpassing India in terms of country with the most, with extreme poverty, people living in extreme poverty.
Well, I wouldn't say it's too surprising. It's unexpected, given the potential, but it is not surprising because if you look at adjacent events that have happened, when Google was looking at an artificial intelligence center for West Africa, it was not cited in Nigeria, it was cited in Ghana. Just recently, Volkswagen is opening a car plant. And anybody would have thought it would be in Nigeria, but it is in Kigali in Rwanda. So when you look at things we've lost to Kenya in East Africa, even though the potential is here, you begin to see that there's something not aligned between the potential and achieving that potential. And what is missing in the middle is what is reporting in this report. I mean, if you look at the figures, for India, that over the population is about 7%, whereas ours of 87 on a population of 200 million is closer to 50%. Now, when you have 50% of people that are living in poverty, you won't be surprised about the uprisings that are going on in the north and in the central, not central as well, because it has a way of expressing. So these are the reasons why I'm not surprised at that report and the findings.
Now, experts tell us that to unlocking the potential of growth on the African continent, the best route is to invest in the continent's youth. As we've talked a lot about human capital, but when you look across the board, statistics or data shows us that African government is still not investing enough in the human capital, especially the youth. So one way to go has been entrepreneurship. It's popular these days, and it appears that that's the route that everyone's going now. So, but like today, we're talking about obviously the mindset of an entrepreneur. I'd like you to just start because I've seen different, I've heard different and listened to different perspectives on how the phrase entrepreneurship mindset has been defined. But I'd like to ask you, what is your perspective on what an entrepreneurship mindset is or should be?
Well, it's become more popular now, especially when you look at the population increase, global population increase, and the need for jobs. To put it in perspective, Nigeria has about 30 million micro and small enterprises. And these 30 million, if they employ 2 people each on the average, that's 60 million jobs already created. I mean, if you look at the companies in our stock exchange, they're just about 200. Even if the biggest one has 6,000 people, that's about 120,000 people, nowhere near 60 million. And if these 30 million are empowered to employ 1 more person each, you create another 30 million jobs. So entrepreneurship is very important related to jobs. An entrepreneurial mindset, there's a lot of myth about it. Some people think that entrepreneurs are born, and some people think that entrepreneurs are made. And when I go to class and people ask me, I always feel that that is the wrong question. The right question for me is who volunteers to be an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur, to me, and the mindset he has, is you see a problem and then you solve it. I'll give you one example that you can very easily relate to. Typically, women that work in corporate environments, they have 2 shoes when they are going to the office. One to drive and one to look tall in the office. Now, this is...
That's one way to put it, okay.
There's a problem, that is begging for a solution. And I say, okay, why don't we have retractable heels so that When you're driving, you push in the heels, and you get to where you're going, you pull out the heels, and then you have one shoe. It's a crude way of giving an example of a problem that needs to be solved. And an entrepreneur mindset is someone that recognizes that problem and then is motivated enough to do something about it, has a minimum value product, launches the product, starts making money, making adjustments and improvement, and then starts a business that is sustainable.
Now, in your experience, because we have so many entrepreneurs in Nigeria, in your experience, would you say that a good number were forced or found themselves in a position where they had no choice but to be an entrepreneur because the jobs simply weren't there?
That will be part of it. But the entrepreneurs that really succeed are those that are passionate about something that they want to do something about. I just met a lady that I was chatting to when I was waiting to come in, and she is doing something in the elderly caregiver space, which is totally absent. I mean, if you have an aged mother or dad and you're working and your husband is working, who takes care of them? So she does in-home taking care of the elderly, which is a calling that she's passionate about, and she's followed it up to now create that business, and maybe many more people will go into it. So entrepreneurs are typically people that don't go the beaten path. They rather go where there's no path and chart a trail for other people to follow.
Now, you run a leadership academy, the Austin Leadership Academy, where I assume these are some of the things that you teach. Tell us about that and how you're helping to drive home that point on having the importance or significance of having an entrepreneurship mindset.
I think the big thing about our environment is a lack of mentorship. There are so many training institutes, so many so-called master classes, but everyone is reading textbooks and then telling people the definitions of things they've read. What they need really is a mentorship regime which has made Silicon Valley what it is. There is a very strong, deliberate mentorship culture in Silicon Valley, which is absent here. So the Austin Leadership Academy came in to mentor entrepreneurs, to institutionalize and scale their businesses geometrically. The whole idea is that if we mentor entrepreneurs and their businesses succeed, they'll optimize the jobs they create, and this will enable shared prosperity, which would take crime down, all these insurgencies down. And what we then said we're going to do different from a typical business school was that people come there with their own business idea or their businesses that they are running as the case study. And in the first week, they are going to define their purpose and their vision and their values. In the second week, they are going to then look at the business model and ask, what is the value proposition? What is my customer segment? What are the key activities that I need to do? What are the key resources? How much they cost? What kind of partners? So it's very clear that when they're going away, they're going to go out with a business playbook for their own business that they're going to execute on. And we bring a lot of people that are champions of business to share their life experience so that they are going away thinking, this is Oscar, or this is Okere Nalama, or this is Ike, and this is what he did, I could do that. Now, in business schools, you talk about people that you can relate to, Bill Gates, and so they feel that it's just the academic part and just the certificate to get a better job. But a mentorship program is to come and say, this is my business idea. You get your cohorts, that's your classmates, to criticize and make it harder, harden the business plan so that when you go to execute it, there's every chance of success. Okay,
so if I understand you correctly, part of what you're saying is that basically an entrepreneurship mindset isn't necessarily an innate ability and is something that can and perhaps should be learned. I mean, going to an academy, for instance, having a mentorship program.
And you're very correct, because sometimes talent is overrated. Innate means talent. According to Einstein, it's 1% talent and 99% hard work. You know, so whether you are born with it, not born with it, your dad is an entrepreneur, not, it's not as material as yourself deciding that this is a passion that I have and this is a problem in that passion zone and I want to go and solve that problem. Africa's history is not properly recorded. So you find people like Chinua Achebe and Chimamanda Adichie that come with a way of recording our history in prose form. And that itself is a passion that then gives them that kind of recognition. But it's not that there wasn't that need. It's just that they found that need and they had a passion to follow it to create that industry.
Now, what I hear sometimes, and I've heard it, over time, is, some people cannot succeed as entrepreneurs or businessmen or women because they don't have business, that phrase, business acumen, as it were. But, you see some people, and, when it comes to numbers, because I know that's one problem many SMEs, small business owners have around bookkeeping, they're not able to quite, get the numbers right. But in terms of being a visionary, they have the concept in mind. They have the concept in mind, but they're not good with the books and all of that. But you can tell that, there's something there, as it were.
And you are very correct. You hit the nail on the head again. There is a big gap between the founder class, which are the people with the vision, and the people that should be aligned with them in executing that vision. There's a big gap in leadership there. And that is that leadership gap that we need to fill. And that's why the also leadership is helping to fill that leadership gap. The numbers are one thing, because now you have a lot of outsourcing of your accounting to smaller firms that don't charge you much, or you even have software that can help you to do that accounting. The big thing that makes businesses fold up, lack of governance and lack of ethics, lack of institutionalization, no succession plan. And I'm not saying succession plan where the owner should quit and somebody should take over, no. Succession plan about people that are key man in the business that when they leave can have an impact, but there is no plan to groom somebody side by side with them so that when one leaves, one is doing, taking that slack. The biggest for me is governance. A business where you are not very clear where the business starts and stops and where your own finances start and stop. A business where you are not clear what a worker earns or what constitutes a reason for promotion. You just look at people and you like them, or they've done a favor to your wife and then you reward them in the business, and it's not very clear. A business must have governance, which means that whatever we're doing should tie to the vision and we should be all aligned. I've seen a lot of people on what we call man o' war, pulling the tug. Women that are aligned will take down men that are not aligned any day in tug of war. Why? Because when they are aligned, you count 1, 2, pull, 1, 2, pull. But when people are pulling out of sync, it just kills the momentum. So alignment in leadership is very clear for business success. Governance is the other side of it. Succession is the other side. And ethics. Because you take a customer down once, he's not going to come back to you again.
Absolutely.
And it's very difficult to get a first customer. So your repeat customers are not the ones who should drive away. I've
been speaking to Austin Okere, founder, CWG PLC, and entrepreneur in residence at the Columbia Business School, talking about developing and having an entrepreneurship mindset. Beyond Markets continues after the break. Welcome back to Beyond Markets. Still with me in the studio is Austin Okere, founder, CWG PLC, and entrepreneur in residence at the Columbia Business School. We're continuing our discussion on the entrepreneurship mindset. Austin, thank you so much for your time so far. We're talking, we know that we have millions of SMEs out there, many of them operating in isolation. They don't have access to the typical, challenges, finance. But this time, I'm even more interested in the kind of support that would help them to move the key in their business, move the needle rather, going from point A to point B, where they begin to either hire more people or become a little more sophisticated in their business processes, where they're not just that typical 2 personnel, 3 staff company that don't have their books right, owing customers, just have so many things running wrong at the same time. Because I'm thinking, if we're going to get our youths to become very good entrepreneurs, sophisticated in line with global best practices, as it were, we need to actually do more. And obviously, academies like such as yours are helping to close that gap. But obviously, we need more.
We do need more, but we need to make the best use of what we have. Our measure of success at the Also Leadership Academy is to mentor at least 200 entrepreneurs in a year. And the whole plan is to have them come in batches of 40, and we're going to do 5 in a year. I think that the issue of operating in isolation is still a lack of mentorship, because someone has a brilliant idea. He's a visionary. Remember, he's not an operations person. But the typical partnership that works is that entrepreneur has a visionary idea, a technology person, because today a lot of the delivery channels are through technology. A lot of the supply chain systems are through technology. and then maybe someone that is good with finance. So these three people are typically a good set to come together to form a company. Many private equity companies will back people when they have these three in there, because then you have some kind of equilibrium. Having said that, they also need to be empowered with networking. And that co-network, you'll be surprised, these 40 people will bring in each class, how much business they do amongst themselves and how much they depend among themselves on things that they will need to succeed. So someone is doing, for instance, new media marketing, putting your brand out there. He's in the class. And you are trying to be seen. So they get together and then they give business to each other. And not just the money they are making, but supporting the business to have roots. You know, I remember when the Minister of Industries, Trade and Investment, Dr. Okere came to the academy to share his experience. He immediately opened a corridor and he says, well, this is a medium that allows people that have made it, respectable people of virtue that want to give back, to come and share their experience. I would like to take feedback from this medium on how we can make the environment more business friendly. And he shared the experiences of what he's been doing, and especially on the economic growth and recovery plan. You know, so there was a meeting of the nexus between government and business, and a lot of people have taken advantage of that. They're doing a lot of things in BOI that can help entrepreneurs to scale, but they need access to those things. They need to know about them. And what an academy like ours does, the Also Leadership Academy, is to make sure that that co-inspired networking happens, and then the cross-pollination to the mentors also happen. The mentors are worried when people come to them individually because they don't know what they're coming for. Some are coming to ask for money. But with a platform like ours, they come and share and pour out from within themselves, and they are willing to take more mentees because they know that they have been profiled. You know, so this whole aspect of standing by yourself, there's also the structure of business that you need to inculcate into that business. And that structure of business has got to do with the governance, it's got to do with the ethics, it's got to do with the financing, the finance and funding, and human resources, because business is about people. Big part of the course is what we call high performance teams. Because if the teams are not high performing, then the business itself is not high performing. You have an I person, he came in with a qualification, he's not done any improvement. You have a T person, he came in one qualification, he's learned one more, so it's two. But the best is the H people. They've come in with one, they learn the deep one, and they have another one on the periphery, so that they can do three things. But someone needs to tell them that you can do it.
Are there, because many times when I look at the Nigerian population, especially the youth population, I also remember China, how China with a remarkable model was able to bring millions of people. And obviously it got to a point where China had to look inwards and realize that, look, we can benefit from this huge population. And then, of course, in the space of 20, 30 years, we're able to bring several millions of people out of poverty. And it was all around entrepreneurship, you know, small businesses. So I'm thinking, what leaf or examples can we take away? Because we have this huge engine of growth, that's the SMEs. Many of them today, regardless of all that's been done, the support from banks, academies, etc., are still not able to scale when it comes right down to, you know, the nitty-gritty of it. They cannot scale. We're still year to year battling with issues of credits and, you know, other processes, etc. So I'm just thinking, are there examples that we can take a leaf from that will help us perhaps leapfrog? I don't know. If we can do that.
Leapfrog is the word. What we need to do to get out of this situation is really leapfrog, not incremental increases. Leapfrogging. What China did really was human capital development, local manufacture, and obviously also being the world's manufacturing plant. Means they have cheap labor, they have the machinery. Anybody wants to manufacture anything in Nigeria, they'll go to China to manufacture it, and then making themselves into that block. The Indians then use software. What the Arab Spring did, it started in Tunisia, and in Tunisia, what they've done now is been very specific about human capital development. So people know, people they're spending money on that. The first thing they did. The second thing is to bring more women empowerment, so that the other half of the population joins in economic activity that increases the whole economic force. The third thing they did was tourism. Because tourism is one way that you can very quickly give business to people at the bottom of the pyramid. Very basic skill, low skills, hotels and so on, drivers to drive people from the airport. The good thing about that is a double whammy, because people are coming with their own forex to spend in the country. So money is coming in, forex is coming in. It also gives the country a very good brand outside when people come for tourism. And that's why Kenya trounces Nigeria anytime somebody is going to cite anything in Africa, because the tourism is good. So when the family of the specialists, expatriates, are asked, where would you rather be, they will just tell you, listen, I would like to go to Kenya. Beyond restaurants, what kind of entertainment activities do we have in Nigeria? So we need to look at that. And our climate, our weather is very friendly to tourism. I mean, it's not too hot, it's not too cold. In Dubai, where people go and have holidays, sometimes it's over 40 degrees centigrade. We never get to 40 degrees centigrade. And still they've created that environment of tourism. So I think that human capital, as Bill Gates said, is very key. Healthcare, education, and security. And probably we also need to look at now the macro side, how to solve the power. Giving people low interest rates, which are artificial, it's not sustainable. But solving the power problem brings sustainable development. It attracts investments to come. Maybe the car factory that went to Kigali would have come here because more Nigerians will be available to buy cars than 5 million people in Rwanda. But they are punching way beyond their weight, and I don't blame them. And I don't blame anybody citing the factory there, because they've created the environment to attract it.
I think, that's just obviously one of the paradoxes, because we actually do have the population, we actually do have the markets. Now, I wanted us to quickly talk about another side of the entrepreneurship mindset, as the intrapreneurship, where people try to get the entrepreneurship mindset while still being employees, as it were. Tell us about that.
I think for me they are equally important, because yes, entrepreneurs are smaller companies, maybe 50 people, maximum 100. But big corporates tend to have thousands, maybe 3,000, 5,000, 6,000. And the people running those big companies, apart from the visionaries founder, maybe he's even left, are entrepreneurs. Take, for instance, Microsoft. Satya Nadella did not start Microsoft, but he's taking it to great heights. He's a great entrepreneur. Same with Jack Werner of LinkedIn. And these are people that need to have an entrepreneurial mindset. They are entrepreneurs, but they don't want to go out and start on their own. They just want an environment where their entrepreneurial skills will come to play on scale. We need to have that here as well. If you take a lot of big companies that are going out and being kicked out of the stock exchange, huge companies that were employing thousands of people before, but because we neglected the entrepreneurial culture and crossing those entrepreneurs in entrepreneurial environments where they impact each other, then we lost those entrepreneurs. So in the Also Leadership Academy, we have a lot of corporates coming with their entrepreneurs, which are the cradle of the entrepreneurial mindset of the business, coming to mix with entrepreneurs and forming those associations and cross, they're encouraging each other.
And what I hear is that for entrepreneurship, for the employees, there has to be that entrepreneurship, one culture, high levels of motivation, and of course, visionary leadership by either the head of the company, who may not necessarily be the founder, but who is there, like Microsoft. Is that what do you see that happening?
Well, for it to happen, there has to be a connect between the leadership in that corporate environment and the people, the people there, especially the entrepreneurs. Okay. I'll give you an example. You tell someone, listen, go and capture that bridge, and we need that bridge to capture by 4 p.m. today. He goes and there's no bridge. Maybe the bridge has been blown. He just comes back and tells you, well, the bridge has been blown. You go tell another person, capture that bridge. We need it by 4 p.m. because we needed to move army supplies to go to a rebel area. He goes and that bridge is blown up. But he knows that without a bridge, you cannot move supplies in. Now, what he will do is look for another bridge and secure it and come back and say, well, that bridge is blown, but guess what? I saw this other bridge and I think that our supplies can move across that. The difference, he knows why he's doing what he's doing. We treat people as if they are kids and they are family people, have wife and children. When you treat the staff like staff, they behave like staff. When you treat them with an ownership mindset and tell them why you are doing what you're doing and why it's important in the building block of what we're trying to do in aggregate, they are more committed. They see the transparency as an opportunity to also express themselves in the common goal. And that's what is missing.
Austin, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for talking to us today. Pleasure having you on the show. I've been speaking to Austin Okere, founder of CWG PLC, an entrepreneur in residence at the Columbia Business School, talking about having an entrepreneurship mindset. Well, that's a wrap on Beyond Markets for today. Thank you so much for being a part of it. I'm Esther Awuni. Bye for now.